Hello, I'm Chris Holland, and this is Shit You Could Have Googled in 30 Seconds. Today, we ponder the effectiveness of masks in a COVID-19 world. Mask culture is all the rage. With unemployment on the rise, people have been making masks, and the line at the fabric store wraps around the building every morning. There are N95 masks, dust masks, cotton masks, surgical masks. But is there any point to wearing them at all, or does it imply complicity in a totalitarian regime? The most effective way to curb the spread of the coronavirus is staying home, but we know that we have to get back out there into the public sooner or later. Groceries need bought, essential work needs done, and eventually the economy will hit a point where we have little choice. If we must go out, then the big rules we keep hearing are social distancing, hand washing, and mask requirements. Social distancing doesn't seem to bother anyone too much. After all, who wouldn't mind having their personal space supported and enforced? Hand washing is a practice one should have picked up as a child. Masks, on the other hand, have become a polarizing topic of discussion, being a strangely random and misplaced tool of political affiliation. When the coronavirus first came to the attention of the public, we all learned an acronym overnight, N95. But what does N95 mean? To be certified as an N95 respirator, it must meet specific requirements of the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, or NIOSH. The first part of the rating, the letter, is a classification of its oil resistance, while the numerical value indicates the level of filtration. N95 seems to be the most famous because it is the most widely available, but there are more effective options on the NIOSH scale if you know how to read it. NIOSH standards use a particle size of 0.3 micrometers, 3/10,000,000ths of a meter, as the means of measurement. What this means is that an N95 respirator filters out 95% of particles that are 0.3 micrometers in size. There is also a 99 and a 100 rating, which filter out 99% and 99.97% of particles, respectively. The first part of the rating, the N, means that it has no oil resistance. There are additional classifications of R, meaning that it has some resistance to oil, and P, which is effectively oil-proof. While oil resistance may not seem important with COVID-19, N and R-rated masks are meant to be replaced daily, while P-rated masks can be used for up to 40 hours without needing replacement. Therefore, the best unpowered mask you can find would be a P100, but the N95 is much more readily available. But what about that size? The COVID-19 is estimated to be only 0.12 micrometers in size, under half the size the particles that NIOSH uses as the standard. So can they be effective at anything this size? Firstly, let's just imagine a volley of bowling balls coming at you like a cough of coronavirus particles. Now, a bowling ball is 8.5 inches, and you'd rather they not hit you in the head. Your only protection is a sheet of plywood with a hole in it. Now, let's say that hole is over twice the size of a bowling ball at 20 inches. Well, a volley of particles doesn't travel single file in a line. It comes as a cloud, randomly and branching in directions. That hole is large enough to let a bowling ball through, but how many do you think will happen to line up directly for the hole? And how many do you think will bounce off the plywood around it? No matter how you do the math, the answer is considerably less than all of them. With luck, none make it through. With less luck, 2 or 3 do. But honestly, that's irrelevant. And the reason it's so irrelevant is that the size of COVID-19 doesn't matter because it's not an airborne pathogen. It can't fly through the air on its own, hoping to slip through your mask because it needs a vector for transmission. Droplets from coughing and talking can be such a vector. One cough can emit a similar number of droplets as 5 minutes of talking, roughly 3,000 droplet nuclei. The largest droplets, those over 5 micrometers, which comprise most of a cough, fall quickly to gravity, traveling a meter or two, just short of the 6 feet suggested by social distancing. Smaller droplets, those under 5 micrometers in size, can travel 2 meters or more before falling to the ground and may traverse that 6-foot distance. Sneezing is the worst offender, especially for those with seasonal allergies, with the small aerosol droplets traveling up to 27 feet. But the good news is that observations show that COVID-19 spreads primarily by large droplets, and those droplets are 16 times the size of particulate that the N95 masks are designed to protect against. If I were to talk directly to you within a couple of feet for 5 minutes, I would transmit large droplets to you. If you wear a mask, I would still get droplets on you and your mask, which have the possibility of working their way through, possibly infecting you. If I wear a mask, though, then very few droplets have any chance of getting past my mask, trapped before they can travel. When I wear a mask, it protects you, not me. And that's not me living in fear, that's me showing respect for you. Although supplies are starting to replenish on respirators and masks, there is still a priority to make sure medical personnel are equipped. You could look online for foreign-made masks with similar filtration standards, such as the FFP2 in Europe, the KN95 in China, or the DS2 in Japan. But we have yet to examine the domestic alternatives to NIOSH classified PPE. Firstly, we have canister respirators. Seen used in body shops and paint shops, they are recognizable by the canisters on each side of the face. The filters and canisters come in many classifications, including N95, but there is one key difference with the way they work. They take air in through the canisters, filtering what you breathe in, but then exhale through the front vent, which has no filtration. Using these offers some protection to the wearer, but does nothing to stop the wearer from infecting others, unless you customize it by adding a suitable filter substrate to the exhalation vent. Next, we have surgical masks. Not really form-fitting, they are the recognizable teal pleated ones worn by surgeons and seem to be much more available. They are not considered suitable as respiratory protection and are meant to be replaced regularly, as doctors replace them between every patient. Fortunately, they do offer protection against large droplets the same way an N95 mask does, so wearing one will inhibit your ability to infect someone else. Dust masks, like surgical masks, don't have the rating to filter tiny particulate, but they are also effective at stopping large droplets at the source. Typically sold in hardware stores and used to protect from sawdust, they resemble N95 respirators but will not have the NIOSH rating stamped on them. Neoprene masks, used in winter sports, are just as effective. Less effective are bandanas and neck gaiters. Designed for maximum breathability, they are not near as effective as stopping droplets as anything I mentioned previously. But don't let that deter you. Even a half-assed barrier works better than no barrier. And of course, we have the grassroots industry of mask making. It's become common knowledge that cotton is the best choice of fabric because it can have a very tight weave that blocks 60 to 70% of particles, especially when constructed properly. There are many different patterns, with the AFNOR barrier mask and the Olsen mask offering great coverage. Layering cloth increases its effectiveness exponentially, as does adding a filter layer. Some common and effective filter materials that you may find available include vacuum bags, coffee filters, and even the blue car shop towels. Wash the mask daily, and experts say they will help prevent the spread of COVID-19. It is crucially important to note that exhaust vents severely impact the effectiveness of any mask. They can be seen as an option on N95 respirators and many neoprene masks, the round plastic one-way vent for exhaling. They are filtering the air coming in, but they don't filter the air blowing back out through that vent, just like a canister mask. So avoid those versions if possible. We all touch our faces without thinking about it. Studies show that people touch their own faces an average of 16 times per hour, rubbing an eye, scratching their nose, or wiping their mouth, and we don't usually even think about it. The secondary function of a mask is that it inhibits our ability to touch our nose or mouth, making us realize when we try to, and teaching us new habits of hygiene and awareness. But didn't the CDC say you shouldn't wear one if you have no symptoms? In the beginning, yes, the message was to leave N95 masks for the professionals because there wasn't enough to go around for the people working the front lines of this pandemic. Inventory has started to catch up with the demand now, and that isn't so much the case anymore. We've also discovered that a lot of carriers of the coronavirus are asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic, never feeling ill or not feeling ill yet, but that doesn't stop them from infecting others unknowingly. The truth is that you can't be certain whether you have it or not. Testing is still not widely available. Results take days or weeks, and the current tests have a false negative rate of 20 to 30%. You might have it right now and you wouldn't even know. Some believe they have a medical exemption from masks due to asthma or COPD. The truth is that medical professionals, including the American Lung Association, implore people with such conditions to be even more diligent to mask usage because the discomfort that they experience wearing a mask is eclipsed by the potentially fatal consequences people with such risk factors would suffer if they contract COVID-19. For those hoping to use HIPAA and the ADA to eschew masks in public, I'm sorry to say, you've been lied to by a web meme. HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, only applies to medical professionals, so it just means your doctor can't share your medical information without your knowledge and has nothing to do with face masks or the grocery store you're trying to enter. As for the Americans with Disabilities Act, it applies to people with a major disability, defined as a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities, a person who has a history or record of such an impairment, or a person who is perceived by others as having such an impairment. The disability must be associated with the requested accommodation, so a request around a face mask would have to be due to a respiratory disability and not an unrelated disability. Now, the store cannot ask you the nature of your disability, so you think that little card you printed out in your is your license to carry your way right past the manager, right? Not so fast. The ADA requires businesses to make reasonable accommodations for the disabled, but can refuse if it would result in a direct threat to the health and safety of others. Since the CDC and WHO declare people without masks as a direct threat, the ADA does not grant you a golden ticket to enter. They can accommodate through curbside pickup, but no business is ever required to put their or their customers' health at risk, no matter what card full of acronyms you printed off. At the end of the day, the decision to go without a mask is ultimately a selfish one. You may not show symptoms, but you risk the lives of others who never asked to be a part of your statement. You might never even feel sick, or maybe you fight it off easily, laughing at the scared snowflakes. You will never have to face the people you infected. You will never know how many grandmothers were buried in your wake. You will never know how many fathers fight for their life because of you, how many children end up with irreparable lung damage to pay for your misguided definition of freedom. Don't be a link in the chain of transmission if you unknowingly contracted it, and you should just live as if you do. Be assured that the steps you take end that chain of infection with you. Err on the side of safety, humanity, and compassion. After all, if I wear a mask and I'm wrong, I wore a mask. If you don't wear a mask and you're wrong, then people die. Wear a damned mask. I want to thank everyone for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe if you aren't already a subscriber. You'll find the resources and links for this video in the description.